good to see you playing well with others again.
Just like a bat. I dig it.
Maybe temporary.
I'm just starting, but I will say that one of the reasons I was drawn to it is I had a similar fascination to Batman when I was young that I had with the Ape series, which I was obsessed with. And I see a parallel emotionally between Caesar and Batman in that they're both characters who are tortured and trying to sort of grapple with their within themselves to find the way to do the right thing in a very imperfect and to some degree corrupt world. And so it's really that emotionality that I'm interested in. I want to do a very point of view driven, this film and all the films, what I try to do in an almost Hitchcockian sense is use the camera and use the storytelling so that you become the character and you empathize with that point of view. And I think there's a chance to do an almost noir-driven detective version of Batman that is point of view driven in a very, very powerful way that hopefully is going to connect you to what's going on inside of his head and inside of his heart.
The shroud of secrecy around these movies, but you're going into the DC universe with Batman.
Yes, and I was a huge Batman fan, and I had actually the same. There were these dolls when I was a kid by Mego. I was captivated by him and him as a character, and just I had all the toys. I had the Batmobile from, I don't know if it was Dinky or Corgi, but this amazing old cars and that kind of stuff. And I think what's interesting to me is that, right now Hollywood is making a very narrow band of movies, right? Everything is about a franchise, about a pre-existing property, and that very highly personal, point of view driven mode. What I see in Batman that I find so interesting is that in a way he reminds me of Caesar in that he is a character with a really troubled past who is grappling within himself to try and find the way to do the right thing in a really imperfect world, in a corrupt world. And I find that provides an opportunity, again, if you want to take that point of view storytelling. And I could imagine the stories being like a noir, like heavily point of view driven. I mean, the originals were from the Golden Age they were detective stories, right?
Serials,
he was like,
basically,
yeah, exactly. And I think that if you can marry that with the personal, that there's a chance to do something very exciting. So again, I see an opportunity to do something that might be hard to do in another way in the studio system. And if you're going to make a movie in the studio system, I find that this kind of filmmaking can be very exciting.
Yeah.
Okay.
Do you have favorite Batman story arcs?
Sure. Yeah, I do. But I think, also, I wouldn't want to get into that now because if I do, then it would be speculation that we'd be doing that story.
Sure.
But I can tell you this, that, we are looking to all of those, and I'm also looking to other ways that it feels personal. Like to me, like I said, the thing that's interesting is the ways in which you can connect to these stories, but it's what the genre is a cover for, how it relates to the world that we're in. And so I think, I'm going to draw inspiration from those stories, but I want it to be something that's rooted in something that feels not only personal to me, but relevant, to the time. So,
there were the reports that negotiations broke down at some point. You guys came back to the table, obviously, and made a deal. What that leaves me curious about is how confident you feel like you can go in there and do the story you want to do at DC.
I certainly hope so. I mean, let's put it this way. I've never worked with them, but my experience with them so far has been really good. And as I describe what I want to do, they seem really excited.
Hey everybody, you guys have been asking for new Justice League Batman. That was the director of the Batman movie, so they're getting ready to go into production. I'll explain what he meant when he was teasing all that stuff. There's a new round of the Flash Ring giveaway. All you have to do to enter is be a subscriber, leave a comment on this video. So when he talks about Hitchcockian noir-driven detective thriller, he's just talking about the more noir Batman stories. They dropped all kinds of references to things like Long Halloween. I think they'll take inspiration from stuff like Hush. There was Scott Snyder's first run, which was called Black Mirror. That was actually a Dick Grayson as Batman arc when he was still wearing the costume. After everybody thought that Batman had died, he'd secretly gotten sent back in time. But the story is really good. There's Grant Morrison's Batman. He wrote this really awesome run called Gothic, which is inspired by Fritz Lang's M, which is one of the best noir movies of all time. Really anything from that pile. Hush is at the top of my list just because it features all of Batman's biggest villains, but it's still very Hitchcockian in that it's first person. You're following Batman's perspective the whole time. So when Matt Reeves is talking about Hitchcock, when he's explaining the Batman film, most of what he's talking about is the way they use the camera, like literally the way the camera moves and the perspectives that it takes, as well as the way you follow the character around. So like Batman v Superman, you have a couple different perspectives. You jump to Superman's perspective, then you jump back to Batman. You even get a little bit of Wonder Woman. I don't really consider Christopher Nolan's trilogy noir films just because there's so much daylight during that. And literally, noir means black. So noir films typically take place at night. There's long shadows. That's why I included so much of that Long Halloween when they're talking about comic book inspiration. Look at these panels and the way the light spills on the page, the way it spills on the characters' faces. Those are stylistic things that you see in noir films. So expect stuff like that in the Batman movie, which is perfect for the character. So beyond that, the only thing we know is that they're populating his universe with more of his rogues gallery. You have the Gotham City Sirens movie, so we'll already have Poison Ivy, we'll have the Selena Kyle Catwoman, and then obviously you have Harley Quinn and all the other characters that they've already surfaced so far. So I wouldn't expect it to move around geographically as much as Christopher Nolan's movies did. Like during Dark Knight, great film, they go all over the place. It's not just set in Gotham. I'm really expecting them to use the first new Ben Affleck solo Batman movie to really show you what this version of Gotham looks like. You've gotten a little bit of it during Batman v Superman. You watch him cleaning out the slums, you see him in Suicide Squad going after the Joker and Harley Quinn, but you really only see brief street shots. You don't really get to revel in that Gothic architecture, and so much of Gotham's identity is tied up in its architecture. So that's one of the most fun things about revisiting the old Batman movies, is seeing the way they treated that. Tim Burton did a great job with that. Christopher Nolan's Gotham looks a lot more like Chicago because they filmed it in Chicago. But I love the way that he addresses the studio issues that he had. Like for a little while, he wasn't doing the movie, then the deal was back on. That's just part of the process of him getting a little bit more control over the film. So he was originally going to come in, and it sounds like they were going to go with the previous version of the script, but now he has a producer credit, so he'll have a little more authorship. Originally, Jeff Johns and Ben Affleck wrote a draft of the script. It'll be really interesting to see how much of that version of the movie makes it into the final cut, because it sounds like they're going to switch some of the characters. Deathstroke is still a big question mark, whether or not he's still going to be in Matt Reeves' version. It sounds like he will, but the interesting thing is he's not a real big Gotham character, so it'll be interesting to see how they bring him to Gotham City. But in the meantime, if you do want to reread some of the comics, I would recommend Hush. It's just a great story overall, but it's also very relevant to this Justice League DCEU Batman movie. And of course, Long Halloween. And I know I included a little bit of the button in there. I don't think there's any chance that they do something like that. It would be crazy if they try to tie the Watchmen to the DCEU. That's something that they might try 10 years down the road if they really want to get nuts with it. But leave all your requests for DC movie videos in the comments below. There'll be a little bit more as they start to promote Justice League. We're going to be doing a whole bunch of stuff around Comic-Con. So obviously I'll remind everybody when that gets started. They haven't announced their plans, but they'll be promoting Justice League mostly, as well as the Aquaman movie. But what's happening next is I have some new Marvel, DC that I'm going to post tomorrow. Congratulations to the latest giveaway winner, King Ra. Please private message me so I can get your contact details. You can click here for brand new Flash Episode 1, and you can click here for my Spider-Man Homecoming review. Thank you so much for watching. Everybody stay awesome. I'll see you guys tonight.